All right. Good morning, afternoon, whatever time of day it might be. This is Professor Villa, and I'm going to be doing some examples related to dimensional analysis, unit conversion, the factor unit method, factor label method. It goes by many names. I'm just going to be doing some of those problems and showing you some examples. And so a couple things that you could use while you're doing this is the first is to have a calculator. The second is to have some kind of conversion table, something that gets you from English units into metric units. Those are available all over the interweb or in your textbook or Google will have those. And so you need one of those. And so we're going to work through some problems. And so the first problem that I'm going to do, it's kind of a simple one, right? And that's how many minutes are in 2.5 hours. All right, so when I work through these problems, one thing I like to do is kind of set myself up a roadmap. And so I'm going to say, okay, what I need to do is I need to go from hours and I need to convert that into minutes. All right, so I can take hours into minutes. And then what we can do is I can take my hours and say, what's the conversion from hours to minutes, right? And if I remember, I know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour, right? We could also say that that's equal to 1 hour is made up of 60 minutes. Right, so there's two possible conversion factors that I can use for converting from units of hours to units to minutes. And what I want to do in this example is I want the unit that I want, right? So I want my final answer to be in minutes. So my conversion that I use is going to have minutes on the top, right? So whatever units I want, that's going to go on the top of my conversion factor. So I have 2.5 hours, and then I'm going to multiply that by my conversion factor, that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour, right? And when I do that, I can see that because the hours are across from each other, they cancel out. Right, and then I'm left with the units of minutes, which is what I want. So now I do the math, and I have 2.5 times 60 divided by 1, and that's going to be equal to 150 minutes. Right, so there's my answer. 2.5 hours is the equivalent of 150 minutes. So another example problem, right, would be to look at and say, how many milliliters are in 1 quart of milk? Right. So now I want to go from milliliters from quarts, right? That's what I'm starting with. So I want to go from quarts and I want to convert that to milliliters, abbreviated ml. Right. So if I look at my chart, right, I don't have a conversion factor that goes directly from quarts to milliliters. So I'm going to have to adjust that a little bit. And so I have one that I can get from quarts. I can convert that into liters. And then I know that I'm able to convert liters into milliliters, right? Because that's metric and I have the prefixes. So if I start with 1 quart of milk, my conversion says that 1 quart is equal to 1.0, no, I got that wrong. 1 liter, equals 1.057 quarts. Right. So again, I want the units that I want to go on top. So I would say 1 liter is equal to 1.057 quarts. Right. My units of quarts cancel. Right. And now I'm in units of liters. Well, now I need to convert from liters to milliliters. Right. So I'm going to multiply that by the other conversion factor to say that 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters, right? That's because of milli, right? I know that there's 1,000 milliliters in a liter, or 1 milliliter is 1,000th of a liter. So my units of liters cancel. Liters cancels with liters. I'm left with units of milliliters. And so I do the math. 1.00 times 1 times 1,000 divided by 1.057 times 1 and I get an answer of 946 milliliters, right? So 1 quart of milk is going to be equivalent to 946 milliliters of milk. Almost a full liter, but not quite. All right. Another example would be, hypothetically, right? You're cleaning out your closet during the quarantine, need something to do, and you find 1.5 pounds of gold in the back of your closet, right? And so you ask yourself, well, what's the volume of that gold, right? How much space does it take up? I know the mass of it, I know the weight because I'm given the weight, but how much space would that volume of gold take up in cubic centimeters, right? And the conversion that we're given is we're going to use the value of density, right? So remember that the density is equal to the mass of an object divided by its volume, right? And so we're going to look for the volume, right? And so we could rearrange this equation and we could say the volume, right, is equal to the mass over the density, right? So the density of an object is the mass divided by the volume, or the volume of an object is equal to its mass divided by its density. So I'm looking for volume, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 1.5 pounds, right? 1.5 pounds, right? And I need to convert that because my units of density are in grams. I need to take my pounds and convert that into grams, right? So to do that, I have a conversion, right, that I can get that into the metric system. And that 1 kilogram is equal to 2.2 pounds, right? So that will get me into kilograms, right? So my pounds cancel. I'm in units of kilograms. And then I need to get into grams, right? So 1 kilogram contains 1,000 grams, right? So now I've gone from pounds. Kilograms have canceled with kilograms. Pounds have canceled with pounds. I'm in units of grams. And now my last step is to get into centimeters cubed, right? That's my volume. Well, I have 1,000 grams, right? So what I can do is I can take this density and write it as, right, that 19.3 grams is equal to 1 centimeter cubed of gold, right? So 19.3 grams for every centimeter cubed, or 1 centimeter cubed would have a mass of 19.3 grams. So I can put the grams on the bottom, right? So there's the grams canceling, and now I'm left with units of centimeters. So if I do my conversion, I do my math, 1.5 times 1 times 1,000 times 1, that number on top divided by everything on the bottom multiplied 2.2 times 1 times 19.3, I would get a volume of 35 cubic centimeters, right? So, right, that would be not very much, right? So 35 cubic centimeters, right? So 1.5 pounds of gold isn't going to take up a lot of space, right? So you'll be able to store it pretty nicely. Okay. Now, right, the quarantine's over, right? We've been released, right? And so the first thing we're going to do is we got to make an appointment with our hairdresser, right? We got to go to the salon, get the mani-pedi, right? Get the roots fixed, get the ends of our hair kind of cleaned up, right? So you make an appointment and your European hairdresser says that they want to cut off 8 centimeters of your hair. Well, you're not familiar with the metric system as much as you'd like to be. So you say, okay, well, how many inches of my hair is that going to be, right? So you say, okay, well, right, if I'm starting with centimeters, right, I want to figure out how many inches is that. So if I'm removing 8 centimeters from my hair, right, I know that 1 inch of hair is the same as 2.54 centimeters, right? So that's just a simple one-step conversion. And so centimeters cancel with centimeters. And so I have inches, the units that I want. So 8 times 1 and then divided by 2.54. So that's going to be 3.2 inches. All right. So not a lot of hair, 3 inches. Well, that's pretty relatively significant, right? Definitely would be a change, but that's not too bad. So 3.2 centimeters or 3.2 inches would be the same as 8 centimeters. All right. So imagine it's next fall. You're watching some football and you happen to be watching the Bayside Tigers. And the Bayside Tigers, right, need 550 centimeters for a first down. How many yards is that, right? Well, in this case, right, we've got centimeters, and we can convert from centimeters. We know to be able to convert that to inches. Inches we can convert into feet, and then feet we can convert into yards. So we're going to have to do multiple steps in this one to go from centimeters to yards. So if we start with 550 centimeters, right, to convert that into inches, 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. And then we say that inches, right? I've got inches. Now I want to go into feet, right? Well, how many inches are in 1 foot? Well, that's 12 inches, right? And then now I'm in feet, and I want to go to yards. So 1 yard is 3 feet. So 550 centimeters. Units of centimeters cancel, units of inches cancel, feet cancel, and I'm left with the units that I wanted, and that was yards, right? So it's always important to check your units to make sure everything matches up. So 550 times 1 times 1 times 1 divided by everything on the bottom, which would be 2.54 times 12 times 3. And so when I do that, I end up with 6.0 yards. Right, and I've got 2 significant figures in my answer, 6.0, because in the original measurement of 550, that also had 2 significant figures. So it is 6 yards until the Bayside Tigers get their first down. All right, last question would be, you have a piece of wire, right? And that piece of wire is 1.3 meters long. And you want to know that if you cut that wire into 1.5 centimeter pieces, how many pieces will you be able to cut out of that wire, right? So we've got 1.5 centimeters. How many pieces can we cut out of that? So we say, okay, what we do, right, is we've got 1.3 meters, right? So 1.3 meters, and we'll convert that into centimeters, right? So there's 100 centimeters in 1 meter. Right? So now I've gone from meters to centimeters. And now I want to know how many pieces I can get out of that, right? Well, how long is one piece? Right? Well, right, 1 piece of the wire is 1.5 centimeters. Right? So I've got meters to centimeters and then centimeters to pieces. Right? And so 1.3 times 100 times 1 divided by everything on the bottom, and we're going to get 86 pieces of wire out of that original 1.3 long meter piece of wire. All right? So those are some examples of doing unit conversions, and I hope that was helpful. If you have any additional questions, please let me know. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.